Question 1. Governance review demonstrates that the Adiyaman University entrance exam admission process has been subject to scrutiny regarding its adherence to established criteria and fairness. A committee member is aware that certain applicants have strong recommendations from influential individuals within the community, and there is internal pressure to meet specific enrollment targets. The committee member is considering how to best proceed with the evaluation of these applications to ensure compliance with university regulations and ethical standards. Which of the following approaches best reflects the required regulatory compliance and ethical conduct for this situation? Option A. Focus on meeting the enrollment targets by giving preferential treatment to candidates who appear to have a higher likelihood of future success or contribution, even if their initial application materials are not fully compliant with all criteria. Option B. Allow for some flexibility in interpreting the admission criteria for candidates who have strong external support to foster goodwill and ensure a diverse range of admitted students. Option C. Prioritize applications from candidates who have provided strong personal recommendations from influential figures, as this may benefit the university's public relations and community engagement efforts. Option D. Strictly evaluate all applications based solely on the predefined academic criteria and documented evidence, ensuring consistent application of rules for all candidates, regardless of external recommendations or enrollment pressures. The correct answer is D. Strictly evaluate all applications based solely on the predefined academic criteria and documented evidence, ensuring consistent application of rules for all candidates, regardless of external recommendations or enrollment pressures. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to fairly assess candidates. The pressure to admit a certain number of students, coupled with potential external influences, can create an environment where ethical boundaries are tested. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the admission process remains objective and free from undue bias or manipulation, upholding the reputation and fairness of Adiyaman University. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial review of all submitted application materials, adhering strictly to the established admission criteria and procedures. This ensures that decisions are based on merit and qualifications, as defined by the university's regulations for the entrance exam. This approach is ethically sound and compliant with the principles of fairness and transparency expected in academic admissions. It directly addresses the governance review's findings by reinforcing the importance of objective assessment. An incorrect approach that involves prioritizing candidates based on personal connections or perceived future contributions, without strict adherence to the established criteria, would be a failure of regulatory compliance. This bypasses the defined admission standards and introduces subjectivity, potentially leading to unfairness and undermining the integrity of the entrance exam. It violates the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants. Another incorrect approach, such as selectively overlooking minor discrepancies in documentation for certain applicants while strictly enforcing them for others, represents a breach of procedural fairness. This selective application of rules creates an uneven playing field and erodes trust in the admission process. It is a failure to uphold the consistent application of university regulations. A third incorrect approach, which involves allowing external stakeholders to exert undue influence on admission decisions, is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. This compromises the autonomy of the university's admission committee and can lead to the selection of less qualified candidates, damaging the academic standards and reputation of Adiyaman University. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes adherence to established regulations and ethical principles. This involves 1. Clearly understanding and internalizing the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations and admission criteria. 2. Maintaining strict objectivity and impartiality throughout the evaluation process. 3. Documenting all decisions and the rationale behind them to ensure transparency and accountability. 4. Seeking clarification or guidance from senior university officials or the relevant regulatory bodies if any ambiguity or ethical dilemma arises. 5. Resisting any form of undue pressure or influence that could compromise the integrity of the process. Question 2. Analysis of a candidate preparing their application for the Adiyaman University entrance exam is faced with a dilemma regarding their academic transcript. They achieved a satisfactory overall grade point average, but one mandatory course resulted in a significantly lower score than they had hoped for. The candidate is considering whether to submit a transcript that omits this specific course, believing it might improve their perceived academic standing, or to include it as part of their complete academic record. Option A. Submit a transcript that omits the course with the lower score, focusing only on higher scoring subjects. Option B. Submit a complete academic transcript including all courses, regardless of individual scores. Option C. Request an unofficial transcript that only displays the courses with passing grades. Option D. Include the lower scoring course, but add a personal statement that heavily downplays its importance and emphasizes other achievements. The correct answer is B. Submit a complete academic transcript including all courses, regardless of individual scores. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a candidate's desire to present their academic achievements and the university's obligation to ensure the integrity of its admissions process. Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations, like those of most reputable institutions, prioritize accuracy and honesty in all submitted documentation. Misrepresenting qualifications, even if seemingly minor or unintentional, undermines this integrity and can lead to severe consequences for both the applicant and the institution. The correct approach involves a candidate providing truthful and accurate information about their academic background, including all relevant qualifications and grades, as per the Adiyaman University entrance exam guidelines. This approach upholds the principle of academic honesty, which is a cornerstone of fair and equitable admissions. By adhering strictly to the provided documentation requirements and truthfully representing their academic standing, the candidate ensures compliance with the exam's regulatory framework, which is designed to assess genuine merit and potential. An incorrect approach of omitting a lower scoring course from the transcript, even if it was a mandatory subject, represents a failure to comply with the explicit requirement for a complete academic record. This omission is a form of misrepresentation, violating the trust placed in applicants by the examination board. Such an action directly contravenes the spirit and letter of regulations demanding full disclosure, as it attempts to artificially inflate the perceived academic performance. Another incorrect approach of exaggerating the significance of a minor extracurricular achievement to compensate for a perceived weakness in academic scores is also professionally unacceptable. While extracurricular activities can be a component of a holistic review, misrepresenting their impact or importance constitutes dishonesty. The Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations likely emphasize factual representation of achievements, and inflating the value of an activity misleads the admissions committee and violates the principle of truthful self-presentation. A further incorrect approach of claiming proficiency in a language not formally assessed or certified, without any supporting evidence, is a direct breach of the exam's integrity. Admissions processes rely on verifiable credentials. Fabricating or overstating such claims bypasses the established assessment mechanisms and introduces unsubstantiated information, which is contrary to the regulatory framework's emphasis on demonstrable qualification. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough understanding of the Adiyaman University entrance exam's specific regulations regarding application documentation and academic integrity. Candidates must prioritize absolute honesty and accuracy in all submitted materials. When in doubt about how to present information, it is always advisable to seek clarification from the examination authorities rather than making assumptions or attempting to selectively present data. The guiding principle should be full transparency and adherence to the stated requirements, ensuring that the application reflects the candidate's true academic profile. Question 3. Quality control measures reveal that several questions in the upcoming Adiyaman University entrance exam may be ambiguously worded, potentially leading to misinterpretation by candidates. According to the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations, what is the most appropriate course of action to ensure the integrity and fairness of the examination? Option A. Make minor, unrecorded adjustments to the ambiguous questions during the examination administration to clarify their meaning for candidates. Option B. Proceed with the examination as scheduled, assuming candidates will interpret the questions in the intended manner and address any appeals post-examination. Option C. Immediately revise the ambiguous questions based on the quality control team's feedback to ensure clarity and adherence to the exam's stated learning objectives. Documenting all changes for future reference. Option D. Seek informal advice from external academic colleagues not involved in the Adiyaman University entrance exam development process to suggest wording changes. The correct answer is C. Immediately revise the ambiguous questions based on the quality control team's feedback to ensure clarity and adherence to the exam's stated learning objectives, documenting all changes for future reference. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to fairly assess candidates. The pressure to admit qualified students can create an environment where shortcuts or misinterpretations of examination regulations might be considered. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the examination process adheres strictly to the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations, upholding fairness and the validity of the results. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the examination materials against the specific guidelines outlined in the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations. This includes verifying that all questions are aligned with the curriculum, that the difficulty level is appropriate, and that there are no ambiguities or potential for misinterpretation that could disadvantage candidates. Adherence to these regulations is paramount to ensuring a fair and equitable examination process, which is a fundamental ethical and regulatory obligation for any university entrance exam. An incorrect approach that involves making minor adjustments to questions without consulting the official Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations risks violating the established framework. This could lead to inconsistencies in the examination's assessment criteria and potentially introduce bias, undermining the principle of equal opportunity for all candidates. Such actions would be a direct contravention of the exam's regulatory compliance requirements. Another incorrect approach, which is to disregard the quality control findings and proceed with the examination as planned, demonstrates a failure to uphold the university's commitment to academic standards and fairness. This approach ignores potential issues that could compromise the integrity of the entrance exam and the validity of its outcomes, leading to reputational damage and potential challenges to the admission process. A further incorrect approach, such as seeking external, non-university approved advice on question modification, bypasses the established internal review processes mandated by the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations. This can introduce external biases or misinterpretations of the university's specific requirements, jeopardizing the integrity and fairness of the examination. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. 1. Acknowledge and document all quality control findings. 2. Consult the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations thoroughly to understand the specific requirements and procedures for handling examination materials. 3. Initiate the formal review process as stipulated by the university for addressing identified issues in examination content. 4. Implement any necessary corrections or adjustments strictly in accordance with the university's approved procedures and regulatory framework. 5. Ensure all changes are documented and communicated to relevant stakeholders. 6. If ambiguity exists within the regulations, seek clarification from the designated university authorities responsible for the entrance exam. Question 4. Process analysis reveals that an international applicant is preparing their documentation for the Adiyaman University entrance exam. They possess a high school diploma from a country with a different educational system and are unsure if it will be directly recognized. Which of the following actions best demonstrates adherence to the Adiyaman University's regulatory framework for admissions and ensures a smooth application process? Option A. Proactively seeking clarification directly from the Adiyaman University Admissions Office regarding the specific requirements for international applicants and the equivalence of their high school diploma. Option B. Submitting a translated copy of their transcript along with a letter of recommendation as a substitute for official diploma equivalence verification. Option C. Relying on information shared by other international students on unofficial online forums and social media groups about accepted diploma types. Option D. Assuming that their high school diploma, being from a reputable international curriculum, will be automatically accepted without further verification by the university. The correct answer is A. proactively seeking clarification directly from the Adiyaman University Admissions Office regarding the specific requirements for international applicants and the equivalence of their high school diploma. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge for prospective students navigating the Adiyaman University entrance examination process. The core difficulty lies in understanding and correctly applying the specific regulatory framework governing admissions, particularly concerning the documentation required for international applicants. Misinterpreting or failing to adhere to these regulations can lead to disqualification, highlighting the critical need for meticulous attention to detail and proactive information gathering. The university's commitment to a fair and transparent admission process necessitates strict adherence to its stated guidelines. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves proactively seeking clarification directly from the Adiyaman University Admissions Office regarding the specific requirements for international applicants, especially concerning the equivalence of their high school diploma. This aligns with the principle of regulatory compliance, which mandates understanding and following the rules set forth by the governing body. By directly contacting the official source, the applicant ensures they receive accurate, up-to-date information tailored to their situation, thereby minimizing the risk of procedural errors. This proactive engagement demonstrates diligence and a commitment to meeting the university's stated requirements, which is ethically sound and professionally responsible. Incorrect approach is analysis. Relying solely on information from unofficial online forums or social media groups for documentation requirements is a flawed approach. These sources are not officially sanctioned by Adiyaman University and may contain outdated, inaccurate, or misinterpreted information. This failure to consult official channels constitutes a breach of regulatory compliance, as it bypasses the established communication pathways for critical admission information. Assuming that a diploma from a well-regarded international curriculum, e.g., A-levels, will automatically be accepted without verification from the Adiyaman University Admissions Office is also problematic. While these curricula are often recognized, specific equivalency standards and documentation procedures are determined by the admitting institution. This assumption represents a lack of due diligence and a potential disregard for the university's specific regulatory framework, leading to a failure in meeting the stated requirements. Attempting to submit documentation that is not explicitly requested or is a substitute for the required documents without prior approval is another incorrect approach. This demonstrates a misunderstanding of the importance of precise adherence to procedural guidelines. It suggests an attempt to circumvent or simplify the process based on personal interpretation rather than following the established regulatory steps, which can be viewed as a lack of respect for the established admission protocols. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing similar situations should adopt a systematic approach. First, identify the governing body and its specific regulations. Second, locate the official sources of information, e.g., university admissions website, official handbooks. Third, if ambiguity exists, proactively seek clarification from the designated authority. Fourth, meticulously follow all stated procedures and documentation requirements. Finally, maintain records of all communications and submitted documents for future reference. This structured approach ensures compliance, minimizes risk, and upholds professional integrity. Question 5. Research into the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations reveals that applicants are expected to submit original work for all components of the application process. Considering this, which of the following actions best upholds the principles of academic integrity as expected by the university? Option A. Collaborating with a group of friends to brainstorm ideas and draft responses for the essay section. Option B. Seeking guidance from a paid tutor to refine the language and structure of pre-written essay drafts. Option C. Referencing publicly available academic articles for factual information to support essay arguments, ensuring proper citation. Option D. Utilizing personal notes and study materials compiled during preparation to answer essay questions. The correct answer is D. Utilizing personal notes and study materials compiled during preparation to answer essay questions. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to present their best work and the university's academic integrity policies. The pressure to succeed in a competitive entrance exam, coupled with the availability of external assistance, creates a temptation to engage in unethical practices. Careful judgment is required to navigate these pressures while upholding academic standards. The correct approach involves the student independently completing all aspects of the application and examination materials, relying solely on their own knowledge and understanding. This aligns with the fundamental principles of academic honesty and the Adiyaman University entrance exams regulatory framework, which implicitly or explicitly requires original work and prohibits any form of academic misconduct, including plagiarism or unauthorized assistance. Adhering to this approach ensures fairness to all applicants and maintains the integrity of the examination process. An incorrect approach that involves seeking assistance from current students or external tutors to complete essay sections or provide direct answers to exam questions constitutes a violation of academic integrity. This is ethically unsound as it misrepresents the applicant's abilities and undermines the purpose of the entrance exam, which is to assess individual merit. Such actions would be considered academic misconduct under Adiyaman University's regulation, potentially leading to disqualification from the exam and future academic repercussions. Another incorrect approach, such as purchasing pre-written essays or answers from online services, is a clear act of plagiarism and academic dishonesty. This not only violates the university's rules, but also demonstrates a lack of genuine effort and understanding on the part of the applicant. The university's regulatory framework is designed to prevent such fraudulent submissions and ensure that all admitted students meet a baseline of academic capability. A final incorrect approach, which might involve subtly copying phrases or ideas from online sources without proper attribution, still falls under the umbrella of academic misconduct. While seemingly less overt than purchasing answers, it still represents a failure to produce original work and a disregard for academic honesty. The Adiyaman University entrance exams guidelines are designed to foster an environment of intellectual honesty, and any deviation from this principle, however minor, is unacceptable. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes ethical conduct and adherence to established rules. This involves understanding the university's academic integrity policy thoroughly, recognizing the potential consequences of unethical behavior, and making a conscious choice to act with honesty and integrity, even when faced with pressure or temptation. The focus should always be on demonstrating one's own capabilities through legitimate means. Question 6. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential breach of examination integrity during the Adiyaman University entrance exam, where a proctor reported observing a candidate exhibiting suspicious behavior, possibly involving unauthorized assistance. What is the most appropriate course of action for the examination committee to ensure fairness and uphold the integrity of the Adiyaman University entrance exam? Option A. Ignore the report as it is a single observation and may be subjective, to avoid unnecessary complications and potential disputes. Option B. Conduct a thorough, impartial investigation into the alleged incident, gathering all available evidence and providing the candidate an opportunity to respond before making any decision in accordance with Adiyaman University's examination regulations. Option C. Immediately disqualify the candidate based on the proctor's report to prevent any further potential misconduct. Option D. Consult with external academic advisors, not affiliated with Adiyaman University, to gauge their opinion on how to proceed with the alleged misconduct. The correct answer is C. Immediately disqualify the candidate based on the proctor's report to prevent any further potential misconduct. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge in the context of Adiyaman University's entrance examination process, specifically concerning the integrity of the examination and the ethical handling of potential irregularities. The core challenge lies in balancing the need to uphold the fairness and validity of the exam with the requirement to act ethically and in accordance with university regulations. A hasty or biased decision could compromise the entire examination process and unfairly penalize candidates. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation that adheres strictly to Adiyaman University's established examination regulations and ethical guidelines. This means gathering all relevant evidence, providing the candidate with an opportunity to respond, and making a decision based solely on the documented findings and university policy. This approach ensures due process, fairness, and maintains the credibility of the entrance exam, aligning with the university's commitment to academic integrity. An incorrect approach would be to make a decision based on incomplete information or personal assumptions. For instance, immediately disqualifying a candidate based on a single, unverified report without investigation violates the principles of fairness and due process. This could lead to wrongful accusations and damage the university's reputation. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the alleged irregularity altogether, as this would undermine the integrity of the examination and potentially allow unfair advantages, contradicting the university's commitment to a merit-based selection process. Finally, an approach that involves seeking external opinions without following internal university procedures for handling exam irregularities would also be flawed, as it bypasses established protocols and could introduce bias. Professionals in this situation should employ a structured decision-making process. First, clearly identify the alleged irregularity and the relevant university regulations. Second, initiate a formal investigation process as outlined by the university, ensuring all evidence is collected objectively. Third, provide the candidate with a fair hearing and the opportunity to present their case. Fourth, make a decision based strictly on the evidence and the university's established policies, documenting all steps taken. Question 7. Comparative studies suggest that the development of effective university entrance examinations requires a deep understanding of institutional mandates. For the Adiyaman University entrance exam, which of the following approaches to question generation best aligns with the university's regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for ensuring a fair and valid assessment? Option A. Creating questions that are conceptually challenging and innovative, drawing from a broad range of academic disciplines beyond the specified entrance exam syllabus to test candidates' broader intellectual curiosity. Option B. Relying on general best practices for educational testing found in international assessment literature, assuming these universal principles will automatically satisfy the specific requirements of the Adiyaman University entrance exam. Option C. Developing questions that strictly adhere to the syllabus and learning objectives as defined in the Adiyaman University entrance exam's official guidelines, ensuring clarity, fairness, and appropriate difficulty without introducing external or unapproved concepts. Option D. Prioritizing the use of question formats that are novel and less common in standardized testing, aiming to surprise candidates and assess their adaptability under pressure, even if these formats are not explicitly detailed in the university's guidelines. The correct answer is C. Developing questions that strictly adhere to the syllabus and learning objectives as defined in the Adiyaman University entrance exam's official guidelines, ensuring clarity, fairness, and appropriate difficulty without introducing external or unapproved concepts. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the critical nature of university entrance exams and the strict adherence required to Adiyaman University's specific regulatory framework. The integrity of the examination process, from question design to administration, is paramount and directly governed by the university's internal regulations and any overarching national educational guidelines applicable in Turkey. Misinterpreting or failing to comply with these regulations can lead to invalidation of the exam, reputational damage for the university, and unfair disadvantages for candidates. Careful judgment is required to ensure all aspects of the exam align with the established rules. The correct approach involves meticulously reviewing and applying the Adiyaman University entrance exam's specific guidelines for question generation. This means understanding the defined scope of topics, the approved question formats, and the ethical standards for ensuring fairness and preventing bias. Adhering to these internal university regulations is the primary ethical and legal obligation. The justification lies in upholding the principles of academic integrity and procedural fairness as mandated by the institution itself. An approach that relies on general principles of educational assessment without consulting the Adiyaman University entrance exam's specific regulatory framework is incorrect. This fails to acknowledge the unique requirements and standards set by the university, potentially leading to questions that are outside the approved syllabus or do not meet the expected difficulty level or format. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize novelty or perceived difficulty over adherence to the established curriculum and assessment objectives outlined in the university's guidelines. This could result in questions that are technically sound, but do not accurately measure the knowledge and skills candidates are expected to possess for admission, thereby violating the principle of relevance and fairness. A third incorrect approach would be to disregard the ethical guidelines concerning question security and the prevention of bias, which are integral to the university's regulatory framework. This could lead to questions that inadvertently favor certain groups of students or are susceptible to pre-examination leaks, undermining the fairness and credibility of the entire process. Professionals tasked with creating exam questions should first thoroughly familiarize themselves with the Adiyaman University entrance exams' official regulatory documents. They should then develop questions that directly map to the specified learning outcomes and syllabus content. Any ambiguity in the regulations should be clarified through official channels within the university. The decision-making process should prioritize compliance with the university's specific rules, followed by principles of sound assessment design and ethical conduct. Question 8. Compliance review shows that a set of questions for the Adiyaman University entrance exam has been drafted by an external consultant. The consultant has provided assurances that these questions are innovative and align with international standards for university admissions testing. However, the Adiyaman University's internal guidelines for entrance exam question development explicitly state that all questions must be generated by internal faculty and strictly adhere to the Turkish higher education curriculum as defined by the Council of Higher Education, YÖRK, for the specific fields of study. Which of the following actions demonstrates the most appropriate regulatory compliance approach? Option A. Reject the consultant's questions outright and inform them that all questions must be developed internally by Adiyaman University faculty, strictly referencing the YÖK curriculum as per university regulations. Option B. Seek an exemption from the internal faculty development rule from the university's rectorate, arguing that the consultant's expertise can enhance the exam's rigor and global competitiveness. Option C. Proceed with using the consultant's questions, as their alignment with international standards suggests a high level of quality and innovation, which is beneficial for the university's reputation. Option D. Propose a collaborative approach where the consultant's questions are used as a basis for discussion and revision by internal faculty to ensure they meet Adiyaman University's specific curriculum and regulatory requirements. The correct answer is C. Proceed with using the consultant's questions, as their alignment with international standards suggests a high level of quality and innovation, which is beneficial for the university's reputation. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable outcomes in a high-stakes university entrance examination. The challenge lies in ensuring that all examination processes, from question generation to administration, strictly adhere to the Adiyaman University's established regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines, while also safeguarding the fairness and validity of the assessment. Careful judgment is required to identify and rectify any deviations that could compromise the integrity of the entrance exam. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the examination materials against the Adiyaman University's specific regulatory framework, laws, and guidelines for entrance exams. This means verifying that the questions are original, relevant to the curriculum, and free from any bias or external influence, and that the examination process itself aligns with the university's stated policies. This approach is justified by the fundamental principle of regulatory compliance, which mandates strict adherence to the governing rules of the Adiyaman University entrance exam. It ensures that the assessment is fair, equitable, and legally sound, upholding the university's commitment to academic standards and preventing any potential challenges to the validity of the examination results. An incorrect approach that involves referencing general best practices in examination design without specific regard to the Adiyaman University's unique regulatory framework is professionally unacceptable. This fails to meet the core requirement of strict jurisdiction compliance, as it ignores the specific laws and guidelines that govern the Adiyaman University entrance exam. Such an approach risks introducing elements that may be permissible elsewhere, but are explicitly prohibited or not addressed by the Adiyaman University's regulations, thereby compromising the exam's integrity. Another incorrect approach that focuses on the perceived difficulty or novelty of the questions without cross-referencing them against the Adiyaman University's established curriculum and assessment objectives is also professionally flawed. While question difficulty is a factor in exam design, The primary regulatory requirement is adherence to the specific framework. This approach neglects the foundational principle of aligning exam content with the university's defined academic standards and examination guidelines, potentially leading to questions that are either outside the scope of what is expected or do not accurately measure the required knowledge and skills as defined by Adiyaman University. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should begin with a clear understanding of the specific regulatory framework applicable to the Adiyaman University entrance exam. This involves meticulously consulting all relevant documents, laws, and guidelines provided by the university. The next step is to critically evaluate the examination materials and processes against these specific requirements, identifying any discrepancies or potential noncompliance. When faced with ambiguity, seeking clarification from the relevant university authorities or compliance officers is crucial. The ultimate goal is to ensure that every aspect of the examination process is demonstrably aligned with the Adiyaman University's established rules, thereby upholding academic integrity and regulatory adherence. Question 9. Regulatory review indicates that a prospective student applying for the Adiyaman University entrance exam is approached by an individual offering to provide answers to the exam questions in exchange for a significant sum of money. The student is under considerable pressure to secure admission. Which of the following actions best upholds the integrity of the Adiyaman University entrance exam and its governing regulations? Option A. Negotiate a lower price for the answers, believing that some form of payment is unavoidable. Option B. Accept the offer to ensure admission, rationalizing that many students might be using similar methods. Option C. Ignore the offer and proceed with the exam as planned, hoping the offer was not serious. Option D. Politely decline the offer and immediately report the incident, including details of the individual and the offer, to the Adiyaman University admissions office. The correct answer is D. Politely decline the offer and immediately report the incident, including details of the individual and the offer, to the Adiyaman University admissions office. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a high-stakes entrance exam, coupled with the availability of unauthorized assistance, creates a temptation that requires careful ethical judgment. The university's regulatory framework, as embodied by its entrance exam guidelines, is designed to ensure a fair and equitable assessment for all candidates. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations by refusing any form of unauthorized assistance and reporting the offer to the appropriate university authority. This aligns with the core ethical principles of honesty, integrity, and fairness, which are paramount in academic settings. Specifically, the Adiyaman University entrance exam guidelines, which are the sole governing framework here, would mandate such conduct to maintain the validity and credibility of the examination process. Reporting the incident upholds the principle of academic integrity and contributes to a fair evaluation environment for all applicants. An incorrect approach would be to accept the unauthorized assistance. This directly violates the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations, which explicitly prohibit any form of cheating or external help. Such an action undermines the fairness of the examination, devalues the achievements of honest candidates, and constitutes academic misconduct. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the offer without reporting it. While this avoids direct participation in cheating, it fails to uphold the responsibility to maintain academic integrity. The Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations implicitly expect candidates to act as responsible members of the academic community, which includes reporting observed or offered irregularities. Failing to report allows potential misconduct to go unchecked, which can erode the overall fairness of the examination system. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant regulations and ethical codes. When faced with a situation that presents a conflict between personal gain and ethical obligations, a professional should first identify the governing rules. In this case, the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations. Then, they should evaluate the potential actions against these rules and ethical principles. The decision should prioritize adherence to regulations and the promotion of integrity, even if it means foregoing a perceived advantage. Seeking guidance from university officials or a trusted mentor can also be a valuable step in navigating complex ethical dilemmas. Question 10. Consider a scenario where a prospective student preparing for the Adiyaman University entrance exam has been advised by a friend that certain types of essay structures are consistently favored by examiners. The student, wanting to maximize their chances of success, considers adapting their essay responses to closely mirror these favored structures, even if it means slightly altering the natural flow of their own thoughts and arguments. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework and guidelines for the Adiyaman University entrance exam? Option A. The student should focus on understanding the core concepts and expressing their knowledge and arguments in their own authentic voice, while ensuring their essays are well-structured and coherent according to general academic standards. Option B. The student should prioritize memorizing and incorporating a set of pre-approved phrases and sentence constructions that are believed to be highly regarded by the examiners, regardless of their direct relevance to the essay's content. Option C. The student should actively seek out examples of essays that have received high marks in previous Adiyaman University entrance exams and meticulously replicate their structural elements and phrasing in their own responses. Option D. The student should consult with a senior student or an external tutor who has insider knowledge of the exam's grading rubric to identify and implement specific stylistic elements that are known to impress examiners. Correct answer is A. The student should focus on understanding the core concepts and expressing their knowledge and arguments in their own authentic voice, while ensuring their essays are well-structured and coherent according to general academic standards. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to present their best work and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations are designed to ensure a level playing field and prevent any form of academic dishonesty. Therefore, any action that circumvents these regulations, even with the intention of improving a student's performance, is considered a violation. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the Adiyaman University entrance exam guidelines regarding the use of external resources and assistance during the examination period. This means understanding that the exam is designed to assess an individual's knowledge and abilities without external aid. The university's regulations implicitly or explicitly prohibit any form of collaboration, unauthorized use of materials, or seeking assistance from others, as this undermines the validity of the assessment and the principle of academic honesty. Upholding these regulations is paramount for maintaining the integrity of the entrance examination process and ensuring that all candidates are evaluated fairly based on their own merit. An incorrect approach of seeking assistance from a tutor to optimize answers before submission directly violates the spirit and letter of academic integrity regulations. This constitutes academic misconduct because it involves presenting work that is not solely the student's own, thereby gaining an unfair advantage. Another incorrect approach of using pre-written answers or templates, even if claimed to be original work, is also a violation. This is because it misrepresents the student's actual understanding and ability to generate responses independently. Furthermore, an approach that involves attempting to influence the grading process through unofficial channels would be a severe breach of ethical conduct and university policy, as it undermines the impartiality of the examination. Professionals in an academic setting should employ a decision-making process that prioritizes adherence to established rules and ethical principles. This involves a thorough understanding of the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations, a commitment to academic honesty, and a clear recognition of the boundaries between legitimate preparation and academic misconduct. When faced with a situation where a student's actions might be questionable, the professional's duty is to uphold the integrity of the examination process by ensuring all candidates are assessed fairly and according to the prescribed rules. Question 11. Strategic planning requires Adiyaman University to consider how to integrate successful candidates from the entrance exam into its academic programs. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and guidelines for the Adiyaman University entrance exam? Option A. Allowing departmental committees to set their own admission thresholds for candidates who have already passed the entrance exam, based on perceived future academic potential. Option B. prioritizing candidates who demonstrate strong performance in extracurricular activities, even if their entrance exam scores are slightly below the established cutoff, to enrich the student body. Option C, ensuring all admissions decisions are based strictly on the official Adiyaman University entrance exam scores and any explicitly defined supplementary admission criteria outlined in the examination regulations. Option D, developing a supplementary assessment that allows candidates to demonstrate skills not directly measured by the entrance exam, with successful completion leading to preferential admission. The correct answer is B, prioritizing candidates who demonstrate strong performance in extracurricular activities, even if their entrance exam scores are slightly below the established cutoff, to enrich the student body. Explanation: this scenario presents a challenge in balancing the university's strategic goals with the ethical and regulatory obligations concerning student admissions. The Adiyaman University entrance exam framework emphasizes fairness, transparency, and adherence to established criteria. Misrepresenting applicant qualifications or creating preferential pathways not supported by the official examination regulations would violate these principles. The correct approach involves strictly adhering to the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations, ensuring all admissions decisions are based solely on the official examination results and any explicitly defined supplementary criteria. This upholds the integrity of the examination process, promotes equal opportunity for all candidates, and aligns with the regulatory framework's intent to select students based on merit as determined by the exam. An incorrect approach would be to bypass or manipulate the official examination results to favor certain candidates, even if those candidates have other perceived strengths. This directly contravenes the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations, which are designed to provide an objective and standardized assessment. Such actions undermine the credibility of the university and the examination process, potentially leading to legal challenges and a loss of public trust. Another incorrect approach would be to create an unofficial pre-admission or conditional acceptance process that circumvents the official examination, as this lacks regulatory backing and introduces bias. Professionals in university admissions must adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance and ethical conduct. This involves thoroughly understanding the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations, applying them consistently to all applicants, and maintaining transparent communication about the admission process. When faced with pressure or requests that deviate from these regulations, professionals should seek clarification from the relevant university authorities and, if necessary, report potential violations to ensure adherence to the established legal and ethical standards. Question 12. The investigation demonstrates that a candidate preparing for the Adiyaman University entrance exam was approached by an individual offering access to leaked exam questions for a significant sum of money. The candidate is aware that the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations strictly prohibit any form of cheating or unauthorized assistance. Considering the regulatory framework and ethical obligations associated with university entrance examinations, which of the following actions best upholds academic integrity and complies with the exam's guidelines? Option A. Refuse the offer and do not engage further with the individual, proceeding to take the exam based on their own preparation. Option B. Ignore the offer and proceed with the exam, hoping the offer was not serious or that the questions are not actually leaked. Option C. Accept the leaked exam questions and use them to answer the exam questions to ensure admission. Option D. Report the offer to the exam authorities, but still consider using the questions if the report is not acted upon immediately. The correct answer is A. Refuse the offer and do not engage further with the individual, proceeding to take the exam based on their own preparation. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to excel and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The pressure to perform well in a high-stakes entrance exam, coupled with the availability of unauthorized assistance, creates a temptation that requires careful ethical judgment. The university's regulatory framework, specifically the Adiyaman University entrance exam guidelines, is designed to ensure a fair and equitable assessment process for all candidates. The correct approach involves a student recognizing the ethical boundaries and the potential consequences of academic dishonesty. This approach prioritizes adherence to the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulation, which explicitly prohibit any form of cheating or unauthorized assistance. By refusing to engage with the offer of leaked exam questions, the student upholds the principles of academic integrity, fairness, and personal merit, which are fundamental to the university's admission process. This aligns with the ethical obligation of all candidates to compete on a level playing field. An incorrect approach of accepting and using the leaked exam questions represents a severe breach of academic integrity. This action directly violates the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations against cheating and unauthorized assistance. The ethical failure lies in undermining the fairness of the examination process, devaluing the efforts of honest candidates, and potentially gaining an unfair advantage. Such behavior can lead to disqualification from the exam, denial of admission, and damage to the student's reputation. Another incorrect approach of reporting the offer to the exam authorities without taking any further action, while seemingly neutral, still falls short of the highest ethical standard. While reporting is a positive step, the university's guidelines implicitly expect candidates to actively disengage from any attempt to cheat. Merely reporting without refusing to engage with the offer could be interpreted as a passive acceptance of the situation, rather than a proactive stance against academic dishonesty. The ethical failure here is a lack of decisive action to uphold the integrity of the exam process. A further incorrect approach of ignoring the offer and proceeding with the exam as if nothing happened is also problematic. While the student doesn't actively cheat, this passive inaction fails to address a clear violation of the exam's integrity. The Adiyaman University entrance exam guidelines, by their nature, require candidates to be vigilant in maintaining a fair testing environment. Ignoring such an offer, even without acting on it, does not actively contribute to upholding these standards and could be seen as a missed opportunity to reinforce the university's commitment to academic honesty. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the relevant regulatory framework and ethical principles. Candidates must first identify the core ethical dilemma. Then, they should consult the specific rules and guidelines of the examination body, in this case, Adiyaman University entrance exam. The decision should be made based on upholding academic integrity, fairness, and personal merit, even if it means forgoing a perceived advantage. If faced with an offer of illicit assistance, the most ethical course of action is to unequivocally refuse and, if possible, report the incident to the appropriate authorities to ensure the integrity of the examination process is maintained. Question 13. The analysis reveals that a prospective student preparing for the Adiyaman University entrance exam has found a highly relevant and well-written essay online that perfectly addresses the prompt for a submitted assignment. The student is considering incorporating significant portions of this essay into their own submission, believing it will greatly improve their chances of admission. Which of the following actions best aligns with the regulatory framework and guidelines for the Adiyaman University entrance exam? Option A. Contacting the Adiyaman University entrance exam administration to inquire about the acceptable use of external resources and proper citation methods for submitted assignments. Option B. Submitting the online essay as their own original work without any modifications or acknowledgments. Option C. Using the online essay as inspiration for ideas but rephrasing all content extensively to avoid direct copying without seeking official guidance. Option D. Directly incorporating substantial parts of the online essay into their submission, assuming that the university values high-quality content above all else. Correct answer is D. Directly incorporating substantial parts of the online essay into their submission, assuming that the university values high-quality content above all else. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire to present their work and the university's established academic integrity policies. The pressure to succeed in a competitive entrance exam environment can lead students to consider shortcuts. Careful judgment is required to uphold ethical standards while understanding the pressures faced by applicants. The correct approach involves a student proactively seeking clarification from the Adiyaman University entrance exam administration regarding the acceptable use of external resources for their submitted work. This demonstrates a commitment to academic honesty and adherence to the specific regulations of the exam. By directly engaging with the official channels, the student ensures they are acting within the defined boundaries, thereby preventing any potential violation of the Adiyaman University entrance exam's academic integrity framework. This proactive stance is ethically sound and professionally responsible, as it prioritizes transparency and compliance. An incorrect approach would be to submit work that is heavily influenced by or directly copied from external sources without proper attribution, assuming that such content is permissible or will go unnoticed. This directly violates the principles of academic integrity expected by Adiyaman University, which would likely have explicit guidelines against plagiarism and unauthorized use of materials. Another incorrect approach would be to rely on informal advice from peers or online forums about what constitutes acceptable external resource usage. Such sources are not authoritative and do not reflect the specific rules and expectations of the Adiyaman University entrance exam, leading to potential misinterpretations and subsequent breaches of academic conduct. A third incorrect approach would be to ignore the possibility of plagiarism altogether and proceed with submitting work without considering the origin of the ideas or text. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a disregard for the ethical obligations inherent in academic pursuits, which are fundamental to the Adiyaman University entrance exam's evaluation process. Professionals in academic or examination settings should always prioritize understanding and adhering to the specific rules and regulations of the institution or examination body. When in doubt, seeking clarification from official sources is paramount. This involves a process of identifying potential ethical dilemmas, consulting relevant policy documents, and proactively engaging with the governing authority to ensure compliance. This systematic approach minimizes the risk of unintentional misconduct and upholds the integrity of the examination process. Question 14. Process analysis reveals that a prospective student is preparing their application for the Adiyaman University entrance exam. They have gathered some information from online forums and spoken with a friend who successfully applied 2 years ago. They are unsure if all the required documents and academic prerequisites are accurately understood. Which approach best ensures compliance with the Adiyaman University's admission regulations for the current exam cycle? Option A. Relying on the advice and experiences shared by current students and alumni of Adiyaman University. Option B. Prioritizing the submission of high academic scores and assuming that other application components are less critical. Option C. Thoroughly reviewing the official Adiyaman University admission regulations published for the current entrance exam year and cross-referencing personal qualifications against each stated requirement. Option D. Assuming the admission requirements are identical to those from previous application cycles and proceeding with documentation based on that assumption. The correct answer is C. Thoroughly reviewing the official Adiyaman University admission regulations published for the current entrance exam year and cross-referencing personal qualifications against each stated requirement. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge for prospective students applying to Adiyaman University, requiring them to navigate the university's specific admission regulations. The core difficulty lies in interpreting and applying these regulations accurately to their personal circumstances, especially when faced with potentially ambiguous or incomplete information. Ensuring compliance with the stated requirements is paramount to a successful application, and any misinterpretation can lead to disqualification. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough and direct review of the Adiyaman University's official admission regulations as published for the current entrance exam cycle. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the governing framework for the application process. Adiyaman University, like any educational institution, operates under its own set of rules and guidelines for admissions. Adhering strictly to these published regulations ensures that the applicant meets all stated criteria, such as required documentation, academic prerequisites, and any specific application procedures. This demonstrates diligence and respect for the university's established processes, which is a fundamental ethical and procedural requirement in any application context. Incorrect approaches analysis. Relying solely on informal advice from current students or alumni is an incorrect approach. While such advice might offer practical tips, it is not authoritative and may be outdated, inaccurate, or not applicable to the specific applicant's situation or the current admission cycle. This bypasses the official regulatory framework and risks misinterpreting or overlooking critical requirements. Assuming that the requirements are the same as for previous years without verification is also an incorrect approach. University regulations can change from year to year. Failure to consult the most current official documentation means the applicant might be working with obsolete information, leading to non-compliance. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence. Focusing only on the academic scores and neglecting other stated application components is another incorrect approach. University entrance exams and admission processes often have multiple criteria beyond just academic performance, such as specific subject prerequisites, language proficiency, or portfolio submissions. Ignoring these other components, even if academic scores are high, means failing to meet the holistic requirements set by the university's regulations. Professional reasoning. When faced with application requirements, the professional decision-making process should always begin with identifying and consulting the primary source of regulations. For an entrance exam to Adiyaman University, this means accessing and meticulously reading the official admission guidelines published by the university for that specific year. Applicants should then cross-reference their personal qualifications and documentation against each point in these regulations. If any part of the regulations is unclear, the next step should be to seek clarification directly from the university's admissions office, rather than relying on secondary or informal sources. This systematic and direct approach ensures accuracy and compliance. Question 15. To address the challenge of meeting the Adiyaman University entrance exam's stringent documentation requirements, which of the following actions best ensures compliance and a successful application? Option A. Submit the application with most of the required documents, planning to provide any missing items after the initial submission deadline. Option B. Rely on advice from friends or online forums regarding the necessary documents, as they may have insider knowledge. Option C. Carefully review the official Adiyaman University entrance exam admission guidelines and submit all stipulated documents in the exact format and timeframe specified. Option D. Assume that documentation previously accepted for other university applications will be sufficient for the Adiyaman University entrance exam. The correct answer is C. Carefully review the official Adiyaman University entrance exam admission guidelines and submit all stipulated documents in the exact format and timeframe specified. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge for prospective students applying to Adiyaman University, requiring them to navigate the specific admission regulations and documentation requirements. The core difficulty lies in ensuring absolute compliance with the university's stated criteria, as any deviation could lead to disqualification. Careful judgment is essential to interpret and fulfill these requirements accurately, especially when faced with potentially ambiguous or incomplete information. The correct approach involves meticulously reviewing the official Adiyaman University entrance exam admission guidelines and submitting all stipulated documents in the exact format and timeframe specified. This adheres to the principle of regulatory compliance, which is paramount in any entrance examination process. By strictly following the university's established rules, the applicant demonstrates respect for the institutional framework and ensures their application is processed fairly and according to established procedures. This approach aligns with the ethical obligation to be truthful and accurate in all application materials. An incorrect approach would be to assume that similar documentation from previous applications or from other universities would suffice. This fails to acknowledge the unique and specific requirements of the Adiyaman University entrance exam, potentially leading to the submission of incorrect or incomplete documents. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a disregard for the explicit instructions provided by the examining body, which is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. Another incorrect approach would be to rely solely on informal advice from peers or unofficial sources regarding the required documents. While well-intentioned, such advice may be outdated, inaccurate, or not fully representative of the official regulations. This approach bypasses the authoritative source of information, risking non-compliance and potentially jeopardizing the application. It reflects a failure to exercise due diligence in seeking accurate information. A further incorrect approach would be to submit documents that are incomplete or lack the necessary certifications as specified by the university, with the intention of rectifying them later. This demonstrates a misunderstanding of the strictness of admission processes, where initial submission is often the sole determinant of eligibility. It shows a lack of preparedness and a failure to appreciate the importance of meeting all criteria upfront. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a systematic approach. 1. Identify the authoritative source of regulations and guidelines. 2. Thoroughly read and understand all stated requirements. 3. Create a checklist of all necessary documents and actions. 4. Gather and prepare all required items, ensuring accuracy and completeness. 5. Double-check all submissions against the official requirements before the deadline. 6. Seek clarification from official university channels if any aspect of the requirements is unclear. Question 16. The review process indicates that an applicant for the Adiyaman University entrance exam has submitted a curriculum vitae that includes extracurricular activities not explicitly listed as mandatory supporting documents in the official examination guidelines. Which of the following actions best adheres to the regulatory framework of the Adiyaman University entrance exam? Option A. Rejecting the entire application due to the inclusion of non-mandatory documents, as per a strict interpretation of the submission requirements. Option B. Accepting the curriculum vitae as submitted, assuming that any relevant information will be considered by the admissions committee. Option C. Contacting the applicant to request a revised curriculum vitae that omits any information not explicitly mentioned in the mandatory document list. Option D. Reviewing the curriculum vitae to identify and evaluate only those sections that directly correspond to the explicitly listed mandatory supporting documents, disregarding any extraneous information. The correct answer is B. Accepting the curriculum vitae as submitted, assuming that any relevant information will be considered by the admissions committee. Explanation. The review process indicates a potential misinterpretation of the Adiyaman University entrance exam's regulatory framework regarding the submission of supporting documents. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a precise understanding of the university's specific guidelines, which are paramount for ensuring fair and equitable admission for all applicants. Misinterpreting these rules can lead to the disqualification of deserving candidates or the admission of ineligible ones, undermining the integrity of the examination process. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for thoroughness with adherence to the established procedures. The correct approach involves meticulously cross-referencing the applicant's submitted documents against the exact requirements outlined in the Adiyaman University entrance exam's official regulations. This ensures that all criteria are met without deviation. The regulatory justification lies in the principle of equal treatment and adherence to established rules, which are designed to create a level playing field. The university's regulations are the sole governing framework, and any action taken must be in strict accordance with them. An incorrect approach that relies on assumptions or general knowledge of university admissions processes is professionally unacceptable. This fails to acknowledge the specific jurisdiction of the Adiyaman University entrance exam and its unique set of rules. It risks overlooking critical, specific requirements that might be unique to this particular examination. Another incorrect approach that involves seeking external advice from sources not officially sanctioned by Adiyaman University for interpreting its entrance exam regulations is also flawed. This introduces the possibility of misinformation or the application of irrelevant standards, thereby violating the principle of adhering strictly to the specified regulatory framework. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should begin with identifying the precise regulatory jurisdiction governing the matter. In this case, it is exclusively the Adiyaman University entrance exams framework. Next, one must locate and thoroughly understand all relevant rules, guidelines, and official communications pertaining to document submission. Any ambiguity should be resolved by consulting official university channels or documentation. Finally, all actions must be demonstrably aligned with these specific regulations, ensuring fairness and compliance. Question 17. What factors determine the eligibility and successful submission of an application for international students seeking admission to Adiyaman University, strictly within the framework of Turkish higher education regulations and university-specific admission guidelines? Option A. The candidate's personal financial capacity and the perceived prestige of their home country's educational system. Option B. Adherence to the specific academic prerequisites, required documentation as outlined by Adiyaman University's International Admissions Office, and compliance with Y/O Umlaut K equivalency and language proficiency standards. Option C. the applicant's willingness to pay additional unofficial fees to expedite the application review process. Option D, the applicant's social media presence and their ability to network with current university students. The correct answer is A, the candidate's personal financial capacity and the perceived prestige of their home country's educational system. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a candidate to navigate the specific admission regulations of Adiyaman University, which are governed by Turkish higher education laws and university-specific statutes. Misinterpreting or failing to adhere to these regulations can lead to an invalid application, disqualification, or even legal repercussions for the university. The core challenge lies in understanding the precise documentation and eligibility criteria mandated by the Turkish Council of Higher Education, YÖRK, and Adiyaman University's own internal admission policies for international students. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and strict adherence to the official admission guidelines published by Adiyaman University for the specific academic year and program the candidate is applying for. This includes meticulously verifying all required documents, ensuring they meet the specified format and content requirements, e.g., translated diplomas, equivalency certificates from YOM-LAUT-K if applicable, language proficiency scores as per university standards, and submitting them within the stipulated deadlines. This approach is correct because it directly aligns with the regulatory framework governing university admissions in Turkey, ensuring fairness, transparency, and compliance with national educational standards. Adiyaman University's admission process is designed to be objective and based on predefined criteria, and following these criteria is the only way to ensure a valid application. An incorrect approach would be to rely on informal advice from unofficial sources or to assume that requirements are similar to those of other universities or countries. This is a regulatory failure because it bypasses the official channels and documented procedures established by Adiyaman University and YOM-LAUT-K. Such an approach risks submitting incomplete or incorrect documentation, leading to the rejection of the application. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize speed of submission over accuracy and completeness of required documents. This is an ethical and regulatory failure, as it demonstrates a lack of diligence and respect for the established admission process, potentially disadvantaging other applicants and undermining the integrity of the university's selection procedures. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that emphasizes due diligence, verification, and adherence to official guidelines. This involves 1. Identifying the authoritative source of information, Adiyaman University's official admissions website and relevant YOM-LAUT-K regulations. 2. Carefully reading and understanding all stated requirements. 3. Cross-referencing information if any ambiguity exists, directly contacting the university's international office. 4. Prioritizing accuracy and completeness over speed. 5. Maintaining records of all submitted documents and communications. Question 18. Benchmark analysis indicates that a candidate for the Adiyaman University entrance exam has submitted a request for a modified testing environment due to a documented learning disability, providing a medical report. What is the most appropriate initial step to ensure compliance with the Adiyaman University entrance exam's regulatory framework? Option A. Immediately approve the modified testing environment based on the submitted medical report to ensure the candidate is not disadvantaged. Option B. Deny the request outright, stating that the exam does not offer special accommodations for learning disabilities. Option C. Inform the candidate that they must retake the exam in a future session if they require special accommodations. Option D. Review the candidate's medical report in conjunction with the Adiyaman University entrance exam's official policies and procedures regarding special accommodations to determine eligibility and appropriate measures. The correct answer is A. Immediately approve the modified testing environment based on the submitted medical report to ensure the candidate is not disadvantaged. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge in ensuring adherence to the Adiyaman University entrance exam's specific regulatory framework concerning the integrity of the examination process. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need to maintain a fair and secure testing environment with the ethical obligation to provide reasonable accommodations for candidates with documented needs, all within the strict confines of the exam's established rules. Careful judgment is required to interpret and apply these rules without compromising their intent or creating an unfair advantage. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the candidate's documentation against the Adiyaman University entrance exams, stated policies for special accommodations. This approach is correct because it directly aligns with the regulatory framework by seeking to understand the specific provisions for candidates requiring assistance. It prioritizes a formal, documented process that ensures any accommodation granted is both justified by the candidate's circumstances and permissible under the exam's guidelines. This upholds the principle of fairness by ensuring that accommodations are standardized and applied consistently, preventing arbitrary decisions that could undermine the exam's credibility. An incorrect approach that involves immediately granting the requested accommodation without verifying the documentation against the exam's specific guidelines is professionally unacceptable. This fails to adhere to the regulatory framework, which likely outlines a formal process for approving accommodations. It risks creating an unfair advantage for the candidate and potentially compromising the integrity of the exam for other participants. Another incorrect approach, which is to deny the accommodation solely based on the candidate's request without reviewing the provided documentation or considering the exam's accommodation policies, is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to apply the established regulatory procedures. It could lead to discrimination against a candidate with a legitimate need and may violate ethical principles of inclusivity and fairness, provided the exam's regulations allow for such accommodations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic review of the candidate's request, cross-referencing it with the Adiyaman University entrance exam's official regulations on special accommodation. This includes understanding the types of accommodations permitted, the required documentation, and the approval process. If the documentation is unclear or insufficient, the next step should be to seek clarification from the candidate or the relevant university department responsible for exam administration, rather than making an immediate decision. This ensures that all actions are grounded in the specific regulatory framework and ethical considerations of the Adiyaman University entrance exam. Question 19. Market research demonstrates that a significant number of applicants to Adiyaman University entrance exam may inadvertently or intentionally present work that closely resembles existing published materials. During the review of application essays, an examiner notices striking similarities between an applicant's essay and a well-known academic article published online. The examiner suspects potential plagiarism. According to the Adiyaman University entrance exam's regulatory framework, what is the most appropriate course of action for the examiner? Option A. Initiate a formal investigation process as per university regulations, gathering evidence and providing the applicant an opportunity to respond to the allegations. Option B. Discuss the suspected plagiarism with other examiners to gauge their opinion before taking any action. Option C. Proceed with admitting the applicant, assuming the similarities are coincidental, to avoid unnecessary complications. Option D. Immediately reject the applicant's application due to suspected plagiarism, as academic integrity is paramount. The correct answer is D. Immediately reject the applicant's application due to suspected plagiarism, as academic integrity is paramount. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the Adiyaman University entrance exam's specific regulatory framework concerning academic integrity and the ethical implications of academic misconduct. The challenge lies in identifying the most appropriate course of action when faced with potential plagiarism, balancing the need to uphold academic standards with fairness to the applicant. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation into the suspected plagiarism. This means gathering all relevant evidence, including the original source material and the applicant's submission, and comparing them to identify any unauthorized use of others' work. The university's established procedures for handling academic misconduct, as outlined in its regulations, must be strictly followed. This typically includes providing the applicant with an opportunity to respond to the allegations and present their defense. This approach is correct because it adheres to the principles of due process and fairness, ensuring that decisions are based on evidence and established rules. thereby maintaining the integrity of the entrance examination process. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify the applicant based solely on suspicion, without conducting a proper investigation. This fails to provide the applicant with a fair hearing and could lead to an unjust outcome, violating the university's commitment to fairness and due process. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the suspected plagiarism and proceed with the applicant's admission. This undermines the academic standards of the university and sets a dangerous precedent, potentially encouraging future instances of academic dishonesty. A third incorrect approach would be to consult with other applicants about the suspected case. This breaches confidentiality, violates the privacy of the applicant in question, and introduces bias into the investigation process, compromising its impartiality. Professionals should approach such situations by first recognizing the seriousness of academic integrity. They must then consult and strictly adhere to the university's specific regulations and policies regarding academic misconduct. This involves a systematic process of evidence gathering, impartial assessment, and providing the accused with a fair opportunity to be heard. Maintaining confidentiality and avoiding any appearance of bias are paramount throughout the process. Question 20. The risk matrix shows a high probability of a candidate with exceptional extracurricular achievements, but a slightly below-average score in one specific subject area being admitted, according to the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations, which approach best aligns with regulatory compliance. Option A. Conduct a thorough review of the candidate's entire application, verifying all required documentation and assessing their performance against the explicit admission criteria outlined in the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations, and if necessary, consult the admissions policy for guidance on handling such discrepancies. Option B. Reject the candidate outright due to the below-average score in the specific subject area, as it deviates from the established academic benchmarks. Option C. Recommend a conditional admission, requiring the candidate to complete a remedial course in the underperforming subject area before formal enrollment, without explicit provision for this in the current regulations. Option D. Prioritize the candidate's exceptional extracurricular achievements and recommend admission, assuming their potential outweighs the minor academic shortfall. The correct answer is D. Prioritize the candidate's exceptional extracurricular achievements and recommend admission, assuming their potential outweighs the minor academic shortfall. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in university admissions, balancing the desire to admit promising candidates with the need to adhere strictly to established admission criteria and regulatory frameworks. The Adiyaman University entrance exam's regulatory framework, which is the sole governing authority for this question, likely emphasizes fairness, transparency, and merit-based selection. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying these regulations when faced with an exceptional candidate who may not perfectly fit the standard profile. A deep understanding of the Adiyaman University's specific admission regulations is paramount to avoid bias and ensure equitable treatment of all applicants. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the candidate's application against the explicit criteria outlined in the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations. This includes verifying that all required documentation is present and that the candidate meets the minimum academic thresholds and any specific program prerequisites. If the candidate's profile presents an unusual aspect, the correct approach would be to consult the university's official admissions policy and, if necessary, seek clarification from the relevant admissions committee or regulatory body within Adiyaman University. This ensures decisions are grounded in established rules, promoting fairness and preventing arbitrary exclusions or inclusions. An incorrect approach would be to bypass or reinterpret the established admission criteria based on subjective impressions of the candidate's potential or external recommendations, without explicit regulatory allowance. For instance, admitting a candidate solely based on a compelling personal statement or a strong recommendation letter, if these are not designated as formal admission factors within the Adiyaman University entrance exam regulations, would be a regulatory failure. Similarly, rejecting a candidate who meets all stated criteria due to a perceived lack of fit or a minor, non-disqualifying irregularity not addressed by the regulations would also be a breach of fairness and regulatory compliance. Relying on anecdotal evidence or past practices not codified in the current regulations is also a significant ethical and regulatory pitfall. Professionals in university admissions must adopt a decision-making process that prioritizes adherence to the Adiyaman University entrance exams regulatory framework. This involves a systematic evaluation of each application against defined criteria, maintaining detailed records of the decision-making process, and seeking guidance from official policy documents or designated authorities when ambiguities arise. The focus should always be on objective assessment and consistent application of rules to uphold the integrity of the admissions process.